What is saving your life right now? This question is given to us by Barbara Brown Taylor, who writes this very question in one of her books. And it's one that I have reflected on over the years. What is saving your life right now? The best part about this question is that it can be a really silly answer like, my morning coffee is saving my life right now. Or it can be something that is much deeper, like the relationships with my family are saving my life right now. What is saving your life right now? I would have to answer that walking is saving my life right now. You see, back in June, I started to go for long walks. I recognized that I was feeling a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and was having a hard time, especially in some of my relationships. And while I couldn't quite get in a good space with those relationships, I decided that I could go for a walk. And going for a walk started to help me refresh, to be able to remember who I am, to be able to look outside of myself at the world, at nature, and understand that I am just a small part of this huge creation that God has made. Now, one of those hard relationships that I was struggling with is my teenager. I continued to struggle with my teenager. Now, if you've ever had a teenager in your home, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's this strange time of their lives in which they're trying to figure out who they are as people. And so they're pushing and they're struggling and they're fighting. But a lot of times they're picking fights with those who are there to support them and love them the most. My teenager has been really good at picking fights or feeling like I was picking a fight with him. And so when I would get frustrated, when I wouldn't have the right answer, when all I wanted to do was argue and yell, I started to go for a walk. Going for a walk helped lower my temperature and lower his as well. And I began to see how walking is one of the ways in which could be really helpful and save my life right now. And so I have been going on daily walks, 3 to 5 miles a day, just to be able to center myself in God's love, to be able to clear out my mind and to be reminded of who I am and who I am called to be. Living with a teenager has taught me a lot about humility, about being able to walk away from difficult conversations, difficult moments, and then being able to come back into that space with grace and love. But we know that takes a lot of hard work. There's this story from Yellowstone National Park where this guy who was there saw a grizzly bear. This huge animal was in the center of this clearing, and this bear was feeding on some discarded camp food that had been left behind. For several minutes, he feasted alone. No other creature dared draw near. But after a few moments, a skunk decided to walk through the meadow towards that food and took his place right next to the grizzly bear. The bear didn't object. And this is why. The bear knew that it would cost him too much. It would cost him too much to get even with the skunk, to scare the skunk away. It would cost this bear too much. And so he ignored the skunk and let him sit there and eat. Now, you might not be the one who thinks they have to get even with their enemies, or maybe you are. But often we want a little bit of payback, don't we? We want this little bit of resignation that you've caused me harm, or you're in my space, or you have hurt me in some way. And the question is, will we realize that it's just not worth it? It will cost us too much to hold on to that hurt, hold on to that anger. Will we humble ourselves and live into that love and grace that God has for us? On Sunday, we talked about how hard forgiveness is. Forgiveness is so hard. In fact, the people in Jesus' time were really wrestling with this question as well, realizing that it was hard for them also. One of the times somebody asked Jesus, "How many times should I forgive?" And you remember Jesus did a math problem and said 7 times 70, right? So you're sitting there adding it up on your fingers. That's a lot. It's a big number. And am I really supposed to sit there and count all of the different times and keep score of the different times that somebody's hurt me? The answer is no. No. Jesus knew that if there was that huge number, that there's no way that we could keep track of wrongs. It's the same way with God and us, right? We mess up over and over and over, and God continues to forgive us, keeping no record of wrongs. So as disciples of Jesus, we are called to live into that. We hear in the scriptures and the gospels how Jesus says that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. But then Jesus also adds to that commandment, and he adds that second greatest commandment. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. You see, both are necessary for us to have that solid foundation of who we are in God. Both loving God with all of our heart and loving our neighbors, that is a foundation for how we are to live in this world. But it's really tough work, right? I mean, it can be really tough work to love your neighbor. It can be really tough work to love your enemy. And that's what Jesus calls us to do. To love not just those who are easy to love, like our family, our friends, but to love our neighbor, which can be very challenging, and even to go a step further and to love your enemy. So my challenge on Sunday was, how can you take that first step of forgiveness? To think about somebody in your mind who you needed to ask for forgiveness from, or who you needed to forgive. And then to go out and to actually forgive that person, or to go out and to actually ask for forgiveness. And if you weren't able to do that, to maybe write a card or a note, a text, an email, send it to them. And if that was too hard, to pray for them. You see, grace is the answer for all of the things. Grace is that unmerited gift that we get from God, that unmerited love that we've never earned, but it's a free gift for us. And in turn, we are to offer grace to others. And sometimes that love for loving other people, it's unmerited, right? I mean, they have not been kind to us. They have not shown us goodness, but we are called to extend that grace to them. There's this poem that reads, "Grace. Sometimes the answer is to simply love, to drop comparison, to not need to be right, but to love. To see the other person for who they are, not what they aren't. Love is a beautiful gift. Love is healing. Love is grace." You see, a lot of times what holds us into the space of not being able to forgive, holding on to those grudges, holding on to this is our space and you have entered in and harmed me, a lot of times that which holds us back is humility. It's laying down our pride. It's going, yeah, they hurt me, but also I've hurt others. and God is calling me to love. See, if you have to choose between being kind or being right, choose being kind, and you will always be right. That is our call, to extend love and grace, forgiveness, and to extend that kindness that we hope somebody will give to us, that love that we hope somebody will give to us, that grace, that unmerited love and acceptance would be given to us. So may we go into our week thinking about the ways in which we need to work on right relationships with others, the ways in which we need to maybe grasp things that can save our lives right now, like going for a walk or writing something down, or even in a moment, taking a deep breath. And then may we be able to forgive and to ask for forgiveness, to humble ourselves, and to ask that God would help us to love those who are hard to love, to forgive as we have been forgiven. May we extend grace and forgiveness, kindness and love to all that we come in contact with. Amen.